The Empire thought the sector was safe. Then a human warship appeared. Part 1. The Intruder. The Novan Empire had ruled the galaxy for over 4 centuries. Their dominance was absolute, their military unmatched, their technology superior to all other known species. At the heart of their power lay Sector Eridani, a cluster of 17 star systems surrounded by an elaborate defense network that had never been breached. Grand Admiral Vax Korin stood on the observation deck of Sentinel Station, the massive orbital command center that served as Eridani's central hub. Below him, the gleaming blue planet of Nova Prime rotated slowly, the imperial capital world housing over 30 billion citizens. Korin's 4 eyes scanned the holographic display that surrounded him, showing the positions of every vessel, station, and defense platform throughout the sector. Another uneventful cycle, he remarked to his second-in-command, Commander Ilzak. As it should be, Admiral, Ilzak replied, her scaled skin catching the light as she adjusted the display. The Emperor values stability above all else. Korin nodded. The Emperor Vaxan II had ruled for nearly a century, maintaining an iron grip on the 1,000 worlds under Novan control. Eridani sector's security was his greatest pride, a testament to Novan supremacy. Then the alarm sounded. A soft chime at first, then a cascading series of tones that grew increasingly urgent. Red lights flashed across the command center as officers rushed to their stations. "Report," Korin demanded, his voice remaining calm despite the chaos unfolding around him. "Unidentified vessel detected at the outer boundary of Eridani sector," a sensor officer called out. "It's bypassed the Helios defensive array." Korin frowned. The Helios array consisted of hundreds of automated sensor platforms and was considered impenetrable. Nothing should have been able to slip through. Visual confirmation. A moment later, the main view screen activated, displaying a distant object moving through space. The image enhanced, zooming in on what appeared to be a vessel unlike any Korin had seen before. Sleek and dark, with an unusual configuration of engines, and what looked like weapons systems, though they were unlike any conventional Novan design. "Origin?" Korin asked, studying the vessel carefully. Ilzak consulted her data pad, her expression shifting from concern to disbelief. "According to preliminary analysis, it's human." The command center fell silent. Everyone knew the stories of humans, of course. A species that had briefly expanded into space centuries ago, before the Novan Empire had contained them, restricting them to their home system. They were considered a minor footnote in galactic history. Primitive, short-lived beings who had shown potential, but ultimately failed to establish themselves as a significant power. "Impossible," Korin said. "Humans don't possess technology capable of reaching Eridani, let alone bypassing our defenses." "The analysis is conclusive," Admiral Ilzak insisted. "The hull composition and energy signature match historical records of human vessels, though significantly advanced." Korin stared at the screen, his mind racing. If humans had somehow developed such technology in secret, it represented a catastrophic intelligence failure and potentially a grave threat. "Open a communication channel," he ordered. The communications officer complied, broadcasting on all standard frequencies. "This is Sentinel Station of the Novan Empire. Unidentified vessel, you have entered restricted space. Identify yourself and state your purpose immediately." They waited. 10 seconds. 20. 30. No response. Again, Korin commanded. 3 more attempts yielded the same result. Silence. "Sir, the vessel is continuing on course toward Nova Prime," the tactical officer reported. "Current speed indicates it will reach orbit in approximately 6 hours. Korin's 4 eyes narrowed. Protocol was clear. Any unidentified vessel refusing to communicate was to be considered hostile. "Deploy the 4th Fleet," he ordered. "Intercept course. Authorization for defensive measures, but I want that ship disabled, not destroyed. We need answers." "Yes, Admiral," Ilzak acknowledged, already relaying the orders. As the command center buzzed with activity, Corrin couldn't shake the feeling that something momentous was happening, something that would change the course of galactic history. Captain Elara Hayes stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the stars streak by as her ship moved through Novan space. The view screen showed the approaching fleet, 64 warships forming a blockade between the Defiance and Nova Prime. "Right on schedule," she murmured. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Chen looked up from his tactical station. "They're charging weapons, Captain. Looks like they're planning to box us in." Hayes nodded, unsurprised. The Novans were nothing if not predictable. Their military doctrine hadn't changed in centuries. Why would it, when no one had challenged them in so long? "Status of our systems?" she asked, walking slowly around the bridge. The Defiance was humanity's most advanced vessel, built in secret during the decades-long preparation for this mission. "All systems nominal," reported Lieutenant Sophia Patel from Engineering. "Stealth systems functioning at optimal levels. They can see us now only because we're allowing it." Hayes smiled. The Novans thought they had contained humanity, limiting them to Sol system with their supposedly unbreachable blockade. They had no idea what humans had accomplished in the centuries since their last encounter. "And our passenger?" Hayes asked, glancing toward the sealed compartment at the rear of the ship. "Stable," Chen replied, though increasingly anxious to proceed. Hayes nodded. Their mysterious ally, the key to this entire mission, would have to wait a little longer. "Captain," called out Ensign Jackson from communications, "we're receiving multiple hails from the Novan fleet. Admiral Corrin himself is demanding we respond." "Let them wait," Hayes replied coolly. "They've kept us waiting for centuries. A few more hours won't hurt them." The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. Everyone understood the stakes of this mission, perhaps the most important undertaking in human history since the exodus from Earth. They were deep in enemy territory, alone, with no possibility of rescue if things went wrong. "Tactical assessment?" Hayes asked. Chen studied his display. The Novan ships are forming a standard encirclement pattern. Their flagship is positioning itself directly ahead. Based on historical data, they'll attempt to disable our engines first, then our weapons systems. And do we believe their weapons can penetrate our shields? Chen shook his head. "Not likely, Captain. Our quantum barrier technology is at least 3 generations beyond anything they've deployed, but we've never tested it against their heaviest weapons." Hayes considered this. The plan had always been to make contact, not to fight. But she needed to demonstrate humanity's advancement to force the Novans to take them seriously. "All right," she said, making her decision. "Time to introduce ourselves properly. Lieutenant Patel, bring shields to full power, but keep them invisible. Ensign Jackson, prepare to open a channel on my mark." As her crew complied, Hayes felt the weight of the moment. Humanity had spent generations preparing for this day, developing technologies in secret, gathering intelligence, forming alliances with other species subjugated by the Novans. The Defiance wasn't just a warship, it was the herald of revolution. Admiral Corrin watched as the Fourth Fleet moved into position around the human vessel. 64 of the Empire's finest warships against a single intruder. It seemed excessive, yet something about the situation made him uneasy. "Fleet in position, Admiral," Ilzak reported. "Awaiting your command." Corrin studied the tactical display once more. The human ship had made no attempt to evade or change course. It continued moving steadily toward Nova Prime, as if the Novan fleet weren't even there. "Final warning," Corrin ordered. "Then disable their engines." The communication was sent. Again, no response. "Commander Tarek," Corrin addressed the fleet commander. "You may fire when ready. Targeted weapons only. I want that ship intact." "Understood, Admiral." Sarek replied from his flagship, the Imperial Fist. Firing sequence initiated. On the view screen, Corrin watched as the Imperial Fist's main cannons charged, the distinctive blue energy building to critical levels before discharging in a brilliant beam aimed directly at the human vessel's engine section. What happened next defied explanation. The energy beam struck the human ship and simply disappeared. There was no explosion, no deflection, not even a visible shield effect. The energy simply ceased to exist upon contact with the vessel's hull. What just happened? Corrin demanded, leaning forward in disbelief. Unknown, sir, the tactical officer replied, clearly confused. Sensors indicate the energy was somehow absorbed. Before Corrin could respond, the communications officer called out, Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel. On screen, Corrin ordered, his 4 eyes fixed on the display. The image shifted to show a human female, seated in what appeared to be the command center of their vessel. She wore a dark uniform with unfamiliar insignia and regarded the camera with calm confidence that Corrin found immediately unsettling. You heard me, Commander. Stand down. Alert all fleet commanders. I'm taking personal responsibility. Hayes raised an eyebrow. Bold move, Admiral. What changed your mind? Corrin looked at her gravely. I spent my career studying strategy, Captain. I know when a position is untenable. The Empire as it exists cannot stand against what you represent, not without destroying itself in the process. Kileni stepped forward. The device is activated, Captain. The quantum resonance matrix is now operational throughout Eridani sector. Corrin's communicator confirmed this reality moments later, as panicked reports came in from ships throughout the fleet. Weapons systems were offline, defense grids non-responsive. We should return to the Defiance, Hayes said. There's going to be considerable confusion. Corrin nodded. I'll accompany you. It seems I have a new role to play in the coming transition. As they made their way back to the docking bay, emergency protocols engaged throughout the palace. The Novan Empire was facing its greatest crisis in centuries, not through warfare or rebellion, but through the simple nullification of its primary advantage. 6 months later, Captain Hayes stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, watching as representatives from 27 species gathered in the newly constructed assembly hall. The station occupied the same orbit once held by Sentinel Station, though its purpose could not have been more different. Quite a transformation, Admiral Corrin remarked, joining her at the viewport. He wore a new uniform, similar to his old one, but with the insignia of the Galactic Coalition, rather than the Novan Empire. Faster than we anticipated, Hayes admitted. When the defensive systems went down across the Empire, I expected more resistance. The Emperor was wise enough to recognize reality, Corrin said. Once it became clear that the alternative was true collapse, transformation became the only logical choice. Beyond the viewport, a familiar ship appeared, the Defiance, returning from its latest diplomatic mission. In the months since the revolution, it had transitioned from warship to envoy, carrying messages of cooperation throughout former imperial space. The Sylvans are requesting permission to establish new colonies in the outer systems, Corrin noted, checking his datapad. Their population is growing faster than expected. Hayes nodded. Approve it. Their knowledge will be crucial as we continue to integrate technologies. Corrin hesitated. Some within the former imperial hierarchy still resist these changes. They see our new coalition as weakness, a surrender of Novan supremacy. And what do you see, Admiral? Hayes asked, turning to face him. Corrin considered the question carefully. I see possibility. For the first time in centuries, the future isn't predetermined by imperial doctrine. It's uncertain, yes, but filled with potential. Hayes smiled. That's what humanity has always loved most about space, Admiral. Not the vastness or the emptiness, but the possibility. Every star a destination, every world a new beginning. Together, they watched as delegates from across the former empire filed into the assembly hall. The transition wasn't complete. There would be challenges, resistance, perhaps even conflict ahead. But the foundation had been laid for something new. In the distance, beyond the station's perimeter, another ship appeared, this one bearing the distinctive design of human engineering. Then another, and another. The fleet that had once hidden in shadow now operated in the open, not as conquerors, but as partners. They thought the sector was safe, Corrin mused, until humanity's warship showed up. And now, Hayes replied, it truly is safe, not because it's controlled, but because it's free. As the Galactic Assembly convened its first official session, the human warship that had changed everything docked peacefully alongside vessels from a dozen worlds. The revolution hadn't been won through violence, but through the courage to imagine a different future and the determination to make it real. The stars looked the same as they always had, but the galaxy they illuminated would never be the same again. That is the question that most concerns me, Corrin admitted. Either our intelligence has catastrophically failed, or the humans have had help. The Emperor rose from his throne, moving to examine the tactical display more closely. What help could they possibly have received? The Ardeni are too primitive, the Veldar too cowardly, the Merkin too isolated. Corrin hesitated before speaking. There is one possibility, Your Eminence. The Sylvans. A charged silence fell over the chamber. The Sylvans were a near-mythical species, said to have been among the first to achieve interstellar travel. The Novan historical records claimed they had been subjugated early in the Empire's expansion, their technology appropriated, their population reduced to serving in remote Imperial outposts. But there had always been rumors, whispered tales of Sylvan survivors who had escaped Imperial control, disappearing into uncharted regions of space. The Sylvans were defeated centuries ago, the Emperor said dismissively, though Corrin detected a note of uncertainty in his voice. Perhaps not as completely as we believed, Corrin suggested. Their understanding of quantum physics was advanced even by our standards. If some survived and allied with the humans. The Emperor turned away, his clawed hand clenching. What does this human captain want? An audience with you, Your Eminence, to discuss, as she put it, the future of relations between humanity and the Novan Empire. Impertinence, Dresden exclaimed, a representative of a minor species demanding an imperial audience. The Emperor held up a hand for silence. A species with technology that renders our weapons useless is no longer minor, Chancellor. He turned to Corrin. What do you recommend, Admiral? Corrin considered carefully. His entire career had been built on loyalty to the Empire, but he was also a pragmatist. I believe we should grant the audience, Your Eminence, learn what they want, assess their true capabilities, and respond accordingly. If they genuinely desire peace, perhaps accommodation is possible. If not, he left the thought unfinished. The Emperor stared at the image of the Defiance, suspended in space among the Imperial fleet. Very well. Bring this Captain Hayes to me. But quietly, no formal reception, no public acknowledgement. I want to hear what she has to say before the news of this incident spreads further. Corrin bowed deeply. As you command, Your Eminence. Captain Hayes stood in the Defiance's secure chamber, facing the being who had made this mission possible. Kilani, last of the Sylvan High Council, looked nothing like the fearsome creatures depicted in Imperial propaganda. Standing barely 5 feet tall, with translucent skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light, Kilani appeared fragile, almost ethereal. But Hayes knew better. The Sylvans had survived the Novan genocide through intelligence, foresight, and a deep understanding of the universe that even humanity's most brilliant minds struggle to comprehend. They have agreed to the meeting, Hayes reported. Emperor Vaxan will see us in 6 hours. Kilani's multifaceted eyes blinked slowly. Sooner than expected. The demonstration of your shield technology has unsettled them deeply. Good, Hayes replied. We need them off balance. Remember, Captain, Kilani said, their voice a melodious whisper. Our goal is not to destroy the Novan Empire, but to transform it. Vengeance would be satisfying, but ultimately counterproductive. Hayes nodded, though not without reservation. Her grandparents had told her stories of the Great Containment, how Novan warships had appeared in Earth's orbit, delivering their ultimatum: remain confined to the Sol system or face extinction. Humanity had complied, having no choice at the time, but they had not accepted their fate. In secret, Earth's nations had united behind a single purpose: developing technology that could challenge the Empire. The discovery of the surviving Sylvans 50 years ago had accelerated that development exponentially. "The device is ready," Hayes asked, gesturing to the small container resting on a pedestal in the center of the room. Kilani approached it, placing a six-fingered hand on its surface. "The quantum resonance matrix is complete. Once activated within the Imperial Palace, it will neutralize their advanced weapon systems across the sector." Hayes studied the unassuming container. The culmination of decades of human-Sylvan cooperation, the QRM represented a technological leap that the Novans couldn't match. Not a weapon of destruction, but one of nullification, capable of rendering the Empire's military advantage obsolete in an instant. "And the other ships?" Hayes asked. "All in position," Kilani confirmed. "When the signal is sent, they will activate similar devices in each sector capital. The Empire will not fall in a day, Captain, but its foundation will be irreparably cracked." Hayes nodded, feeling the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. "Let's prepare for the meeting. The Emperor won't be expecting both of us." Admiral Corrin escorted Captain Hayes personally from the docking bay to the Imperial Palace. He had expected her to bring a security detail, but she had arrived with just one companion, a hooded figure who remained silent during the journey. "Your empire is impressive, Admiral," Hayes remarked as they passed through the grand boulevards of Nova Prime. "I can see why you're so determined to preserve it." Corrin studied her carefully. "The Novan Empire has brought stability and order to 1,000 worlds, Captain. A concept your species might have difficulty appreciating, given your tumultuous history." Hayes smiled. "We've learned from our mistakes, Admiral. Something I hope your empire is capable of as well." Before Corrin could respond, they arrived at the palace's private entrance, a concession to the Emperor's desire for discretion. The massive doors slid open silently, revealing a corridor lined with elite guards. "The Emperor has agreed to meet you as a courtesy," Corrin said stiffly. "Do not mistake this for recognition of any supposed equality between our species." "I would never presume such a thing," Hayes replied, her tone making it clear that she meant precisely the opposite. The Imperial throne room was less crowded than usual. Only the Emperor, High Chancellor Dresden, and a handful of senior advisors were present. Security was heavy but unobtrusive, guards positioned discreetly along the walls, weapons at the ready. Corrin announced the visitors, then took his place beside the throne. Captain Hayes approached confidently, stopping at the designated position before the Emperor. Her companion remained several paces behind, still hooded. "Captain Ilara Hayes," Emperor Vaxen said, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "You have gone to extraordinary lengths to secure this audience. Speak your piece." Hayes bowed slightly, a gesture of respect, but not submission. "Emperor Vaxen, I come representing not just Earth, but a coalition of species who seek to establish a new relationship with the Novan Empire. For too long, the galaxy has existed under a system of domination rather than cooperation. We believe it's time for change." The Emperor's expression remained impassive. "Your single ship, impressive as it may be, hardly constitutes a position from which to demand change, Captain. The Defiance is merely a messenger, Your Eminence," Hayes replied. "As we speak, similar vessels are positioned throughout your empire, making contact with species who have lived under Novan rule for centuries. We offer them a choice: continued subjugation or partnership in a new galactic order." Chancellor Dresden stepped forward. "This is sedition. You speak of inciting rebellion across the Empire." "I speak of evolution, Chancellor," Hayes corrected. "The Novan Empire can either evolve with us or be left behind. The choice is yours." The Emperor leaned forward. And if we choose to maintain the current order, to crush this coalition, Hayes smiled. Then I invite you to try, Your Eminence. But first, perhaps you should meet one of our allies. She gestured, and her companion stepped forward, lowering the hood. The reaction was immediate. Guards raised weapons, advisors gasped, and the Emperor himself stood, his 4 eyes wide with shock. "Impossible," he whispered. Kilani, the Sylvan, regarded the Emperor calmly. "Nothing is impossible, Emperor Vaxen. Your ancestors learned that when they tried to exterminate my people. Humanity learned it when you attempted to contain them. Today, you will learn it as well." Dresden found his voice first. The Sylvans were defeated, their technology confiscated, their worlds occupied. "You took our worlds," Kilani acknowledged. "You stole our visible technology, but you never understood the true extent of our knowledge. While you congratulated yourselves on your conquest, the survivors of my species fled to uncharted space, where we eventually encountered humanity." The Emperor sank back onto his throne. "What do you want?" Hayes stepped forward again. "We want a new compact, Emperor, one built on mutual respect rather than domination. The Novan Empire will retain its territory, but the subjugated species within it will be granted autonomy. Imperial fleets will withdraw from occupied worlds. Trade will be free and fair." "You're asking us to dismantle our empire," Dresden said incredulously. "We're asking you to transform it," Hayes corrected, "to preserve what is valuable, stability, unity, shared prosperity, while discarding what is destructive." The Emperor's gaze hardened. "And if we refuse?" Kilani produced the container Hayes had seen earlier on the Defiance. "Then we activate this device, which will neutralize your weapons technology across this sector. Similar devices are positioned in every sector capital. Your military advantage will vanish, and the species you've subjugated will rise." Corrin stepped forward. "Your Eminence, if I may." "Silence, Admiral," the Emperor commanded. He studied the humans and the Sylvan for a long moment. "You speak of choice, yet you threaten us with technological sabotage. How is this different from the domination you claim to oppose?" "Because we're giving you a choice," Hayes replied. "Transform peacefully, and we'll share our technology, including defensive systems superior to anything you possess. Refuse, and we'll remove your ability to enforce your will through violence. Either way, the age of Novan supremacy ends today. The only question is whether it ends in cooperation or conflict." The chamber fell silent as the Emperor considered. Corrin watched, his mind racing through strategic possibilities. The humans' plan was audacious, but if their technology was as advanced as it appeared, they might well succeed. Finally, the Emperor spoke. "You will leave your device here as proof of your capabilities. You will return to your vessel and wait for my decision. I will give you my answer in one standard day." Hayes bowed. "As you wish, Your Eminence. But understand, we've anticipated potential treachery. Any attempt to detain us, to attack the Defiance, or to target our vessels elsewhere will result in immediate activation of all devices." The Emperor nodded grimly. "I understand, Captain Hayes. Admiral Corrin will escort you back to your ship." As they walked back toward the docking bay, Corrin finally asked the question that had been bothering him. "You truly believe this can work? That the Empire will simply transform?" Hayes glanced at him. "I believe in necessity, Admiral. The Novan Empire has ruled through technological superiority for too long. Remove that advantage, and adaptation becomes necessary for survival. And if the Emperor refuses, if he calls your bluff?" Hayes smiled. "Then it was never a bluff, Admiral. The age of empires is ending. The only question is how much pain accompanies the transition." Corrin considered this. He had served the Empire faithfully his entire life, believing in its mission of order and stability. But he had also seen the cost of that order. Entire species reduced to servitude, cultures suppressed, innovations stifled unless they served imperial interests. What would my role be, he asked carefully, in this new arrangement you envision? Hayes stopped, studying him with new interest. You're asking if there's a place for loyal imperial officers in our coalition? Absolutely, Admiral. We need leaders who understand the existing systems, who can help guide the transition. The question is whether you can adapt to serving something greater than an empire. And what would that be, Captain? The future, Admiral, Hayes replied simply. A galaxy where advancement comes through cooperation rather than conquest. Before Corrin could respond, alarms blared throughout the palace. Hayes tensed, but Kilani remained calm. It appears, the Sylvan said quietly, that someone has attempted to interfere with our device. Corrin's communicator activated. Admiral, came Ilzak's voice. The Emperor has ordered activation of the Sunfire Protocol. All ships are to target the human vessel immediately. Hayes looked at Corrin. It seems your Emperor has made his choice. Corrin hesitated only briefly before reaching a decision. Belay that order, Commander, he said into his communicator. Stand down all weapons. I'm invoking Emergency Directive 7. Sir, Ilzak's voice was shocked. Emergency Directive 7 allowed a Grand Admiral to temporarily countermand Imperial orders in situations of extreme danger to the Empire itself. You heard me, Commander. Stand down. Alert all fleet commanders. I'm taking personal responsibility. Hayes raised an eyebrow. Bold move, Admiral. What changed your mind? Corrin looked at her gravely. I've spent my career studying strategy, Captain. I know when a position is untenable. The Empire as it exists cannot stand against what you represent, not without destroying itself in the process. Kilani stepped forward. The device has activated, Captain. The quantum resonance matrix is now operational throughout Eridani sector. This is Captain Ilara Hayes of the United Earth ship Defiance, she said, her voice translated perfectly into Novan. I apologize for not responding to your earlier communications, Admiral Corrin. We wanted to ensure we had your full attention. Corrin straightened, trying to project authority despite his surprise. You have violated sovereign Novan space, Captain Hayes. Your presence here is an act of aggression. Hayes smiled slightly. Is it aggression to visit one's neighbors? The Novan Empire has maintained a blockade around Earth for centuries, Admiral. We're simply returning the courtesy of your attention. How did you bypass our defenses? Corrin demanded, ignoring the diplomatic overture. The same way we neutralized your weapons, Hayes replied. With technology you thought we could never develop. The Novan Empire has underestimated humanity for too long. Admiral, that ends today. Corrin felt a chill despite himself. What are your demands? Hayes leaned forward. I bring no demands, Admiral. I bring an invitation, an opportunity for the Novan Empire to peacefully acknowledge new realities. The galaxy is changing. The days of unchallenged Novan dominance are ending. You speak of rebellion, Corrin said coldly. One ship, no matter how advanced, cannot challenge the Empire. Hayes' expression remained calm. We're not alone, Admiral. The Defiance is merely the first to make contact. Even now, human vessels are moving throughout Novan space, making contact with those who desire freedom from Imperial rule. A lie, Corrin thought. It had to be. And yet, the technology this ship had displayed was centuries beyond what humans should possess. Could they have truly developed such capabilities in secret? I request a direct meeting with Emperor Vaxan, Hayes continued, to discuss the future of relations between humanity and the Novan Empire. Corrin almost laughed. You believe you can simply appear in our most secure sector and demand an audience with the Emperor? I believe, Hayes replied, that after you report our technology's capabilities, the Emperor will want to meet with us. War benefits neither of our species, Admiral. We seek cooperation, not conflict. Before Corrin could respond, Ilzak approached with a data pad, her expression grave. Admiral, she whispered, We're receiving reports of unknown vessels appearing in 12 other sectors, all matching the energy signature of this human ship. Corin felt his blood run cold. If this was true, the situation was far worse than he'd imagined. "Captain Hayes," he said carefully, "I will convey your request to the Imperial Court. In the meantime, your vessel will remain here, surrounded by our fleet." Hayes nodded. "We'll await the Emperor's response, Admiral. The Defiance will maintain position." The transmission ended, leaving Corin staring at the starfield and the mysterious human ship that had somehow upended centuries of Novan certainty in a matter of minutes. "Ilzak," he said quietly, "prepare my shuttle. I need to speak with the Emperor immediately." "Yes, Admiral," she replied, but hesitated. "Sir, if the humans have truly achieved this level of technological advancement, then everything changes," Corin finished, his gaze still fixed on the Defiance. "Everything." As he turned to leave the command center, Corin couldn't help but wonder what other surprises the humans had in store, and what it would mean for the future of the Novan Empire. Revolutions dawn. Emperor Vaksan I of the Novan Empire was not accustomed to being surprised. His 800-year reign had seen rebellions, assassination attempts, and the occasional border skirmish, but nothing that truly threatened imperial hegemony. The news that Admiral Corin brought changed everything. "Impossible," the Emperor hissed, his 4 eyes narrowing as he viewed the recording of the Defiance absorbing the Imperial Fist's attack. "Our weapons are the most advanced in the galaxy. The evidence is irrefutable, Your Eminence," Corin replied, keeping his head bowed. "The humans have developed technology that surpasses our own. And if their captain speaks truly, they have multiple vessels deployed throughout our territory." The Emperor's ancestral chamber was vast, designed to intimidate visitors with its scale and opulence. The walls displayed holograms of conquered worlds, a constant reminder of Novan supremacy. Now those same displays showed real-time reports of unidentified vessels appearing in systems across the Empire. "How is this possible?" demanded High Chancellor Dresden, the Emperor's chief advisor. "Our intelligence network monitors all technological developments among subject species. The humans should be centuries away from achieving this level of advancement."